Great morning, world! Welcome to the Rise Up with Dragon podcast with your host, Dragon!
Imagine if you woke up every morning and had a theme song. That's what it's like for me. I love it. I'm just trying to think back to the time where we first came up with that idea for that theme song. Anyway, great morning, world. Great Monday morning. I know that I always greet the morning and claim that it's a great day, but Mondays are a little bit special. I think the science behind that is it's like a reset day because we just had our weekend. It's kind of like New Year's Day every week. So just really starting the day off grateful today. Grateful, I think the number one thing that I have gratitude for today is just the opportunity to step into a realm where I can get my shit together and have a better day, you know, because there was a time in my life that I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
I didn't know about, how important it was to, or how susceptible we were to running yesterday's program if we don't take control of that. You know, I went over that in my Model Morning episode, all on the podcast. You can go to iTunes, Rise Up with Dragon. And by the way, just an onslaught of there's my unprofessionalness. I have my email still on. An onslaught of ratings and reviews. Thank you so much. Truth be told, when you go to iTunes and you rate it, give it a good rating and review it, what it really does is it gives the impression and perception that I'm a lot cooler than I might be, which is important if somebody's taking a look at me and evaluating my coolness factor and contemplating being on the show. So great morning, everybody. I've got a great one for you today. And very excited about not only this day, but this day next week at a different time at 5 p.m. Eastern. Timestamp today is the 5th of April. Farther and farther away from April Fool's Day, so we're not fooling. But next week on the 12th, by the way, the little throat corrections that I do on the video, they're there, but on the podcast we remove them.
Are you taking them out?
Yeah, we're having the team remove them just because it's a little bit gross. But next week on the 12th, we have just one of the most amazing minds out there today. His name is Donald Hoffman, cognitive scientist at UC Berkeley. Unbelievable guy. Go look him up. He's got TED Talks, and this guy wrote a book called The Case Against Reality, and he is going to challenge everything that you have been programmed to believe. So that'll be next week. We'll run it live, but also record it. So anyway, just wonderful morning. Chicken and I had a moment this morning where we were, one part of our routine. We have so many different elements of our routine that we share with everybody. And we do our Rise Up with Chicken and Dragon. We do our Clubhouse on Tuesdays. We're actually doing it on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays now, all different times. So just keep up on that stuff. But we do that on Clubhouse. But one of the things that we do in the morning is as I'm walking from the shower, as part of our routine, and it's time for me to rise up of the chicken. I always go by Alexa and I say, Alexa, and she says yes. And I say, play Buddhist meditation music. And for whatever reason, this same sequence of music plays, and we find ourselves singing them. Do you want to give it a go? Because you're mic'd up.
Oh, I am, okay.
Yeah. We actually don't know. There's no words. And are those words that they're saying when they're saying that?
I don't know if I think it's a chant, like a Buddhist.
It's like a chant of some sort, but it's like one of those songs where we find ourselves singing it, but there's no words, but we know the sounds to it. But we listen to it every day. And just funny, it's kind of like the good morning, Good morning. And you know what? It really helps us start our day. And on that last note on that, Chicken was just realizing when she came into the studio, she says, I'm still trying to get my feet under me.
I'm still trying to find my feet.
Still trying to find my feet. And I think everybody can relate to that. You know, in the morning when you get up and you do your best. I mean, we talk a lot about winning the morning to win the day. But sometimes you find yourself struggling. And, you know, I know what it's like. I've been up since 4:30 and I'm still in my morning routine.
Well, also yesterday was Easter. So.
Yesterday was Easter, and Easter probably threw a couple people on their keister.
Yeah, and you know what I realized about Easter is it's a
What?
lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot of work.
So we went out to New Jersey.
Leaving your coronavirus pandemic environment and going out and being with people. Oh, by the way, Chicken and I thought we had coronavirus and we got tested, and unfortunately we didn't. We were a little bit excited to find out what it was like. But anyway,
you are stepping on so many toes by saying
I did. I just stepped on some toes. But I think I was partly joking, but I was curious. I will say that as I was like in that moment where I was wondering if I had it, I didn't want it, of course. So that was the stupidity of the joke. But I was wondering, like, is this what it is? You know what I mean? So it's kind of a strange thing, but standing on the outside looking in at this coronavirus, you notice everybody's got different opinions of it. Some people are like, oh, it's nothing. And some people really, really struggle with it.
Well, I can tell you something about this. Like, I felt really, really bad on Friday.
Right.
Like, really bad. And so I realized that last week, I had a very rough week because I'd started my clinical hours and stuff. But it just goes to show what an impact stress and fatigue can have on your body, that it actually feels like you have the flu.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the flu is like something that happened in the 1300s now.
I know, right?
You know, it's more of like this new upgraded version of that.
Yeah,
Anyway.
So many people still die from the flu.
So the point in getting your feet under you is that one of the things that's really important in your model morning is to recognize, to detach from the outcome of it. What's important, because if you're in the throes of your morning and you're doing things to get your mind right to win the day, but you create the perception that it's not working or that you're struggling and you back off of it because of that and don't follow through with the whole structure of it, you'll never get to the other side. So here I am, you know, at the time of this recording, it's 3.5 hours since I started my morning routine. And it's not perfect. I'm not 100% ready for the day, but I'm like 90% ready for the day. So me doing this podcast, and this is a little bit of a hint in the whole success leaves hints or success leaves clues, is whenever you go through your process and you learn something and you make distinctions, a big part of it to put the icing on the cake is to put it out there and share it. So I do it on Mondays and Fridays. I do it via this podcast, these live stream videos. Very uncomfortable to do all those things. And also on the other days, I'll do lives on Instagram and stuff like that. That's how I put the icing on the cake. And I find that if I go through my model morning and I don't, oh, you know what? I just realized I forgot to turn the Clubhouse room on. So let's do that. And if I don't share it with others, what happens is that I don't fulfill it. So I'm going to open up the Clubhouse room now. If it works, it's open. So if anybody likes an after party, Chicken, do you like a party? Do you like a good party?
You know,
you used to.
I'm turning 35.
Right.
I'm sort of in two minds about whether I like a good party or not. I think for me, party has changed. That's like Netflix right now. Yeah.
Well, that's what we meant. Going out with friends now is a lot of work. And that's not an age-related thing. That's more of, we're just, I don't know. Maybe, you know what? Maybe we need to do it more because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday was great.
And we're looking at each other going,
it was just our closest friends. But like an actual going to a club, no thank you.
Yeah. So anyway, for those of you that like to join in the Clubhouse room, there's a group of people that like to mastermind and talk about the topic after I opened up the room. You can find it at Make Sense. All of the other channels are Rise Up with Dragon if you want to find. Okay, so today, awesome Rise Up today, and it's one that addresses a word and poses as a massive challenge in all of our lives, and it's the concept of overwhelm. Overwhelm, just the idea of looking at it can be overwhelming, and a lot of us don't even want to talk about the concept of being overwhelmed because it is overwhelming to just even entertain it. So we're so trained unconsciously to run from it, and if we run from overwhelm, we very often miss the magic and one of the main ingredients in success. So when I was doing this, I was talking about this idea of taking a day on versus taking a day off, right? Because the idea of taking a day off usually is attached to overwhelm. So have you ever felt that you just need a day off or to step away from what you're doing? Everybody can relate to that.
I'm sorry.
What was that?
That was actually.
You ever have that moment where your phone just like blares something out and you don't even know what to do? So the first thing you do is you step back from it.
Yeah, like it's a bomb or something.
Right.
That was just a video that my friend sent me, and I didn't know that it was going to.
Well, if your friend sent it to you, we should make sure that we screen it first. So come with me. Have you ever had a day? So that's actually something we can cut out from the podcast. That's the value of the edit for the podcast, is we can make it look perfect. So have you ever felt like you just needed a day off or to step away from something? So the very nature of wanting or thinking that you deserve a day off is what it is that I want to talk about. It's a potentially, as we say, below the line way of thinking, right? Think about that for a second. If I feel that I need a day off or that I need to step away from something, in that moment I can perceive and receive that I think something's happening to me and I need to back away from it. That's what I mean by below the line. So as in the perception that the day is happening to you, therefore the solution is to step away from it. See, that's where I want to go is this concept of backing off from overwhelm. There's a perception that it's a solution, right? And that might not necessarily be true. So let's imagine a different reality, and the reality where you are so content and happy, and you'll remember this as a child, you're so content and happy in this reality that you don't feel that you ever need a day off. So let me take you back to a time where you used to be like that. So just remember that image of yourself as a child playing your favorite game or playing on a playground outside, right? And your mother comes out and says, "Hey, Dragon." She didn't call me Dragon when I was a kid, but just for fun. "Hey, Dragon, it's time for dinner," right? "It's time to do your homework," or something like that. And that's the last thing that's the furthest from what it is that you want to do. So you remember those days where you would be having so much fun playing and engaged and playing with your friends or whatever that you could just do it forever. You don't need food or anything like that. So just recognize that we used to have a time in our lives where we would just be so engaged in what we're doing that we didn't want to step away from it. The idea of taking a step back or a day off didn't make sense, right? So imagine if your life and your daily activities, because this is the reframe of your mind. Imagine if your life and your daily activities were set up the same way, where you never felt the need or desire to take a day off. In fact, you looked at your life and the things that you do in your life as something so fulfilling and so necessary and just so logical. It made so much sense that you never wanted to step away from it, right? So your desire in that world is not to take a day off. Your desire is to take a day on. Now, in the realm of personal growth and pushing forward and success, we recognize that we're not supposed to stop things when they're in momentum. We're not taking a day off. Sometimes is what we think we need to do, but it never gets us to the end. Now, taking a day off is not the same thing as recuperating and rejuvenating. I'm talking about stepping away from something. When you step back and rejuvenate and recuperate and rest and take a nap or go to sleep at night, that's still, you're still on, but you're just working on yourself to put yourself in a better position. So the very idea of wanting a day off implies that your cup runneth full, and that filling of your cup is happening to you, as I said before. So that's that concept of it happening to you. It's a victim mentality, victim of circumstance, and it's a below the line concept. And we always remove ourselves from responsibility when we feel that way. Well, not all of us. So that you have too much going on, potentially overwhelmed by that, having too much going on, or maybe that you have gotten involved in activities that you're just not good at and need a break. So let's look at this with a wide open mind, right? And also open heart. You know, one of the things that I love is anytime, one of our biggest challenges I've spoken before is that we don't harmonize our mind and our heart. We let our mind and our analytical mind, programmed by yesterday, call the shots, but your heart is what you want to tap into, harmonizing your mind and your heart. That's what Karma Mind does. That's what Chickens, we forgot our sponsorship.
A guided meditation podcast rooted in Buddha's beautiful teaching.
There it is. And when we listen to those meditations, it helps us bypass our analytical mind. But an easy one is when you talk. I notice that it's becoming a habit for me now. I put my hand on my heart and I tap my heart. So as we go look at this concept of being overwhelmed, I want you to release yourself from the analysis and the analysis paralysis of analyzing this concept of overwhelm with the very concept that you use to perceive it, right? So tap your heart and ask your heart the question. So according to one of my favorite authors, according to Gay Hendricks, and he's the author of an amazing book that transformed my entire life called The Big Leap, who identifies 4 common, what he calls upper limit barriers or hidden barriers that hold us from following through on our goals. Definitely read that book, because what that book does is it helps you unveil things that you have in place that, because if you ever find yourself getting close to winning, close to your goal, and then all of a sudden diverting and backing off and just, you see yourself yo-yoing, or you just see yourself never really following through all the way. What Gay Hendricks in his book points out is that there could be an upper limit problem or a hidden barrier that is in place, which you, by the way, put in place to help give you an excuse or a reason to divert. I'm not going to go too far into that. Go read that book or go listen to an audio on it. Unbelievable. So one of the most popular hidden barriers or upper limit problems in our society especially is the notion, this is one of those hidden barriers, it's the notion that success comes at the expense of being overwhelmed. So this is where we want to go right now. Success, this is just a notion. It's an idea. It's part of our program, and it's part of how we analyze things and our current reality. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, recognize that that's part of your program. Overwhelm is a perception, right? So that's the upper limit problem, and the potential farce is that success comes at the expense of being overwhelmed. So this means that we unconsciously perceive that in order to succeed, right, we must sacrifice being overwhelmed. Now, if you are not a fan of being overwhelmed, I mean, here I am, like years and years and years working on this stuff, and I still hate overwhelm. I don't get excited and overwhelmed. When I wake up and I booted up this day and I realized I had a rise up to do, all these responsibilities. I have a team meeting, another hour. At 12 noon today, I'm going to meet with the amazing Tamsin Astor, and we're going to have a, creating healthy habits Clubhouse room at noon today. Hope you can join us for that. But when I look at those things, and then tonight on our national leadership call, I have this other thing. If I boot all those things up, I create the perception immediately, even though I know all this stuff, that it's an overwhelming day. And as soon as I feel that day, I'm still, after all these years, programmed to recoil from it a little bit and make a sound like Chicken makes this sound when she's overwhelmed. She'll go, oof, right? Yeah. What sound do you make? You can put it in the the comments. What sound do you make when you're overwhelmed? Chicken, it would be spelled capital O-O-O-O-F-F. Oof, right? So nobody likes to be overwhelmed. So when we feel it, we have a tendency of slowing things down and divert to an underwhelmed set of activities. Now, this is important because if you don't recognize what it is that you do when you're overwhelmed, you might not recognize that you're not only doing underwhelming things, but you're doing things that make it even harder to get back on track. So all I'm asking you to do here before you make a big decision is just step back and pause when you feel those things. Feel the feelings, but don't buy into them right away. So you make sense, right? Makes sense. Give me some feedback on that in the chats and the comments and all that stuff. So the only problem is that we never seem to make it to the place that where the breakthrough is and where we grow, right? Outside the comfort zone, in the uncomfortable place. So just the very act of me being here doing this podcast and all these live streams is part of me being overwhelmed and pushing through it. When I get to the other side, I'll feel accomplished, I'll be excited, I'll get positive feedback, I'll recognize that I'm in a growth process. The rest of the day will be easier to do. When I got on the Peloton this morning, day after Easter, oh man, I was overwhelmed by it. It was really, really hard. So this is called the fear of success, right? Which is often scarier than the fear of failure. I think a lot of people resonate with the fear of failure, right? We're all afraid of failing. I'm gonna contend that the fear of success is even scarier, right? It's not that we're afraid of what we can't do. It's afraid that we're powerful beyond measure, right? So the fear of success is real. So we protect ourselves from overwhelm by having ways of escaping it. This is what I want you to identify. You maybe even make a list of the things that you do to escape it. Now, in our international health coaching company, Chicken and I take care of thousands and thousands of clients and we train coaches. So this is a big thing. A lot of people don't recognize that nobody ever wakes up and decides to proactively get healthy by eating pizza and donuts, right? So what we help them do is we help them identify unconscious triggers such as being overwhelmed or having anxious feelings or whatever, these emotions that trigger them to do it. So now you realize that sometimes we're not just eating a donut. When we're on program, we don't just eat a donut because we like it. We don't just eat a donut because we were triggered by an emotion. We're also now recognizing that some of these things that we do to escape from the feeling of overwhelm. So here's the catch, right? Remember that the obstacle is the way. Every book tells you that, right? We always have to do the hard work and the hard work. So the obstacle is the way. Well, the people at the top of the mountain, right? They're not smarter than you. They just followed through and got overwhelmed and didn't run. That's the only difference between them and most of us, right? So eventually, after a few runs, so this is one thing I can tell you from experience. Now, it's never easy. It just gets easier, right? But eventually, after a few runs of being overwhelmed and pushing through and following through, this unsettling process of being afraid and doing it anyway, they report learning. So I'm not saying it gets easy, but people that do this, that fight through the overwhelming feeling, they start to report that they learn that the secret to success is understanding overwhelm not as a bad thing, right? They actually start talking about if you're overwhelmed with things structured to promote the growth that you desire, it's not a bad thing. So now think about this for a second. If you set a goal to lose weight, or is the cat trapped under the bed again? So our cat does this thing where she pretends to be trapped under, it's like, we'll call it the damsel in distress because it's the female cat. So she's not actually trapped, but she knows that if she cries, her mother will come get her. So it could be a little bit of background noise or something.
Okay, yes, let's continue.
But the people that are real technical about podcasts will be upset with it. You don't care, okay.
Yeah.
So think about that. However, if the growth and those things are hindered with all the other stuff that's non-supportive you have on your plate, you may discover those non-supportive things are there strategically. So think about this. So if I set a goal to be physically, mentally, mentally and financially better to increase that. And I put all the action steps that are associated with promoting that forward on my plate. If I engage in all those things, I have a tendency of feeling overwhelmed, like, oh my God, there's too much going on, right? So what I'll do is I will go and do other things to escape from that overwhelm. So the first step is to recognize that you're not overwhelmed, you're just in it. You're actually in it. You're on the playing field and you are moving towards your goals, and you're afraid of it. So there's another way of looking at overwhelm. But really grasp this. If that growth and those things that are hindered with all the other stuff that's non-supportive, right? So now we hinder that by doing non-supportive stuff you have on your plate. You may discover that the non-supportive things, which are easier, by the way, they're in your comfort zone. The non-supportive things, the things that don't move you forward. So the non-supportive things that you have on your plate, you may discover that those things are there strategically, meaning we have them there as escape routes and hall passes, right, to get us out of that overwhelmed feeling. So that's self-sabotage. So all I want you to do there is just recognize that you have things in place that you can run to. They're in place. That's why somebody that's on a diet or looking to, improve their health keep crap in their cupboards. Right? Because, if you really, truly burned all your bridges and you're going to go, or burned all your ships, you're going to go, guess what? You're not going to have any crap in your opinion. So that's self-sabotage. We have things in place to get us out of trouble. So now, I know that all of you, especially parents, or maybe even people that have, that you're entrepreneurs and you have employees, you know about the scenario where our day off from work, this is another concept of taking a day off. You know the idea that when we take a day off from work, actually it ends up being a day on, right? So what I mean by that is sometimes we have to recognize that if we take a day off from something, that day off is actually busier. Like parents out there, tell me if you vibe with this. Have you ever noticed that when you go on vacation with your family, it's like one of the craziest, most stressful things sometimes, right? So if I take a day off from work, guess what happens? All of the other stuff that I have been not doing because I said I couldn't, now all of a sudden, guess what? That's when I do all those things. So it's not a day off. So the reason why I'm sharing that with you is just recognize that if you have a tendency of taking a day off and stepping back from things, when you go into those non-supportive things, you might recognize that they are actually really, really busy work, fake work, not moving you forward, but because they're in your comfort zone, you're much, much more comfortable doing those and keeping you busy. But because there's so many of them on your day off or when you step back, you can get stuck there. And that's when you go through a season where it takes you months or even a year to get back into action with the stuff that you claimed was overwhelming. So here's the key as we close this out. The key is to first acknowledge and become acutely aware of the logic behind success and your perception of overwhelm as a bad thing. So what is it that you perceive when you think about overwhelm, right? Is it a bad thing? Is it something that you're looking to avoid? Well, if you can say right now that I'm trying to avoid being overwhelmed, you're also in that sentence. Be aware that you're also in that sentence saying, I'm trying to avoid being successful. Right? Because we just came up with that idea that when you have that feeling of overwhelm, it's typically the feeling associated with doing all the things that you know you need to do to move forward, right? So the next step is acknowledge that when you that what you perceived as overwhelm was just the fear associated with realizing that you're in the arena of play and getting close to winning, which is a new place called the unknown, and we always get scared when we step into that new unknown place, and can also be perceived as scary. And then the other thing is just recognize that when we step into that unknown place, or when we recoil from it and we take on that busy work, it's that busy work that gives you the perception that you now don't have time to go back and step into the arena of play. And you'll notice that when you're distracted from success, when you're distracted from the things that you know you need to do to succeed, You don't look at those things as being overwhelmed now. You just start claiming you don't have time for them. So the next time you wake up, maybe it's January 1st, and you get excited and you jump back into the arena of play and you start to do the leveraging action, supportive things. That's when you'll notice that you're overwhelmed again. So how do you break the cycle? Just use logic. Just recognize that it's a fugazi. It's not true. All of those things that you've been programmed to believe about overwhelm, when overwhelm shows up, it's typically a sign that the universe is showing you that you're on track. Anytime that I ever feel overwhelmed, I just step into it and I'm learning those lessons that overwhelm is actually my friend, just like the monster in the closet. So love and appreciate you. Hopefully this one's helpful. I'll be back on Friday morning, and then next week on Monday, we will definitely have Donald Hoffman, but it'll be at 5 p.m. Eastern, and you don't want to miss that. We'll promote that as we go.
Love you, Dragon.
Love you, Chicken. Thank you for being here, my sweetie. Have an amazing day. Love and appreciate you all. And remember, if you learned something today, give it away. That's how it's going to stay. Step into it. Get messy. Get uncomfortable. Get overwhelmed today. Fail more. Collect more no's and failures today. Step into that realm. And on the other side is everything that you desire. Love and appreciate you.